You are listening to Squid and the Ultimate Leafs Fan.
Hello, Canada and hockey fans of the United States and Newfoundland, and an extra big hello to Canadian servicemen overseas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Squid and the Ultimate Leafs Fan, brought to you by the Hockey News. Established in 1947, the authoritative source of hockey and the number one publication in North America, it has an ever-growing podcast network and video database on top of an already established print and digital brand. The Hockey News is there to cover all major hockey stories from around the world. Visit thn.com/deal to get the best value on a subscription to the Hockey News. I'm Mike Wilson, the Ultimate Leafs Fan, and joining me as always, my winger, Ricky Squid Vive. How are we keeping today, Squid?
We're doing okay. Very busy. Doing a lot of interviews for the book and having fun with it. It's been great.
Well, as you should be. So you're not mediated out yet, are you?
I'm getting close.
So a couple today. Well, now you're really in the big leagues now. So, you're going on the other side of the camera again. So we got to make sure, on the microphone, you're not just answering straight questions today. Remember, you're allowed to ask questions on our podcast. Okay. It's not like,
that's true. Yeah. I'll do my best. I got some good Ludzik stories. So I think I'll have to bring those out.
Yeah, that'll be good. So we'll get some of that going today. Well, but first though, we're a new segment of our show that we're trying to bring back a little bit is Leaf history, and this moment in Leaf history. And we like to look back on today, November the 21st, 1958. On this day, a number of things happened. One of the things that does have a tie to my co-host, the Leafs hired George Imlach, known as Punch, to be the new GM of the Leafs. And a week later, he replaced Billy Ray as the coach. And that was in 1958, and 22 years later, he was your boss.
He was. He actually traded for me.
He traded for you.
Thank goodness he did, because it was a new lease on life for me at that point in my career, early in my career. And then things went pretty good after that. So I would say a big thank you to Punch for getting me to Toronto.
Yep, and having that faith in you and your winger there, your centerman, actually, Billy Gallego. So the two of you became as a nice little package. And on this same day, 1964, just for the real buffs, Terry Sawchuk became the first goaltender in NHL history to get one or more shutouts in 16 straight seasons with a 1-0 Maple Leaf win over the visiting Chicago Blackhawks. And he broke a record that had been held by Harry Lumley, which had been 15 years. So another little piece of Leaf trivia for you. And
he wasn't a bad goalie, that guy.
He did okay. He stopped a few pucks over his time, as we found out as fans. And the last time actually that happened was in 1967. That kind of helped a little bit, as people want to remember. So speaking of which, it's pretty quiet on the hockey front all around, although there are rumblings. The owners and the players are still working on a fair agreement as far as compensation and salaries go. The 20% escrow agreement has been put in place. There was talk already. They've agreed upon a 10% cut already on a shortened schedule, which could be anywhere from 48 to 60 games. And now they're talking maybe another 13 to 16% as early as today to see if something happens. Hopefully they can work out something amicably, not quite like their friends in the baseball league that are, getting into the battles again, fighting in the press, and the players threatening not to play. But hopefully, Squid, we can come to some sort of agreement pretty quickly.
I'm pretty sure they will, Mike. And I think a lot of it is going to be tied into revenues. And obviously, there hasn't been that many revenues. And the league shelled out a lot of money this year to get the return to play started and the playoffs and everything else. So, for a year, the players may have to kind of bite the bullet. And, the league, I think, and them will sit down. I think they'll get it all ironed out personally. And, the players are making enough money that even if they lost, 20, 25%, they're still making good money.
Yeah. And some of it will held back, and they could see it come back to them in the near future. And one thing they should remember, and these baseball players should take note, maybe they'll wake up one day and realize this, that the owners actually have a little more money than they do. And these guys are not billionaires for no reason at all. Yes, so they do have maybe a little more staying power in some of these guys. So maybe they should remember that the next time they start bickering back and forth. But another note on a minor hockey twist here was Dustin Johnson winning the Masters over the weekend in very impressive style. Obviously, he's the chap that's engaged to Wayne Gretzky's daughter with a couple of children. So Wayne was a very passionate observer himself. But the interesting thing was, even as sacred and maybe almost religious as this tournament is for some people who plan their whole year around it, and it really is sort of the kickstart to the spring and to the summer for most people, it really was missing that kind of little bit of extra that the Masters brings you every year, just with no lack of fans and just sort of the change in weather. I mean, it almost seemed like it was rushed to me. I mean, you're playing golf every day. And they're going off back tees all weekend, playing in the morning. And it just almost seemed like get this in and get it over with.
Yeah, I think that was probably the idea, was we need to play the Masters in 2020. I mean, yes, it was a totally different feel. I mean, the winds were coming in a different direction than what they normally do. So the players were a little confused. In fact, they were talking about one caddy who kept notes for like 14 or 15 years on the course. And because it was played in November, he just threw that book out the window and said, well, we're not going to need this because everything's going to be different. The greens were different. The rough was different. The winds were coming out of a different direction. And but it was still the Masters.
Oh, yeah.
And then you saw what happened on the 12th hole with Tiger Woods. I mean, that is the Masters. And that hole I've seen bite a few people in the rear end over the years. Jordan Spieth, another one.
Yep.
But to get a 10 on that hole, like, wow, that was un-Tiger-like.
It sure was. And I mean, well, the old adage that says on this tournament in particular, it really doesn't start until Sunday in the back nine. And, it didn't really have a lot of that, although Tiger showed why that is true to form in previous years, when that can just, and look at it, and I think he made 4 birdies in the last 5 holes or whatever it was after that.
Yeah, he still finished -1. Had he not had that 10, let's say he pars it, you take that's -8. I mean, that would have been, right up there in the top 10, but hey, that's golf.
Well, we got to cheer for the old guy, Bernard Langer, the 63-year-old. He beat, how great was that to see him make the cut and finish? What did he finish? -3, I think. -3.
Yeah, like that's
beat,
pretty.
What's his face there? Chamblo, the big mouth, Bryson.
Oh yeah, well, he kind of had some meltdowns out there that weekend as well. So,
hopefully somebody will pull him aside and say to him, "You do have. It's one thing to be passionate and have a comment about certain things in life and sports, but to walk into again, I'll use the word sacred grounds like the Masters that everybody holds in such high esteem, and immediately say that your par at Augusta is 67. That's not going to go, that doesn't go over too well. And then you get beat by a 63-year-old on Sunday. The golf gods were looking out and gave him a little slap across the old wee-wee.
Well, I think he needed it, to be quite honest with you, the way he dominated the previous tournament and, with his length and everything and his strength. But, that's not just, golf isn't all about distance and strength. I mean, there's a lot more to it. And I think I think this maybe will give him a little bit of a wake-up call.
Yeah.
And say, you know what? I got to redefine myself a little bit different. Yes, I have the distance and I can still hit it far, but I got to be smarter and I got to play smarter.
Well, I think the thing people can take away from this is the fact that viewership was even down for the Masters, which is unheard of. And I hope that some of the other sports teams and leagues are watching and paying attention, because if the Masters has a low-end viewership, then we definitely have a sports crisis. That means, pay attention, guys.
Well, I think it had probably less viewers, Mike, more because it was when it was.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was in April, even
no
without fans, you would have had as many viewers as you normally have for the Masters. But I think with the November date, I think that kind of hurt everything a little bit.
Yeah, it did. And anyway, well, so we get 6 months from now, they come back at it again in April. So we'll see, see how they get a second shot at it. And Dustin gets a chance to defend very quickly, all in the same year.
Yeah. And
So
our Canadian did pretty good too.
they did
Corey
absolutely
Connors,
awesome. That's fantastic to see that. And so the guys are all in there again. And Mackenzie Hughes actually qualified and he'll play in April. So that's another 4 guys will be there again, maybe 5 actually. So hopefully, well, our guest today, I guess we both know, it is somebody who after his career at an early age came across or was felled with Parkinson's. He's a guy who's now spending a lot of his time fighting for the cause, running his foundation. He was a pretty good professional himself, actually, and had a pretty distinguished career. And I'm referring to, of course, Stevie Ludzik, and somebody that is a close friend of yours.
Yeah, he is. And we played together in Chicago, obviously. And I think one of the reasons I ended up down here in Niagara Falls is I was down here quite a bit, working with him with his foundation and putting together the roast and the golf tournament, helping and then I kind of fell in love with the area and realized that I could buy a house for about a third of what I could sell mine for in Oakville. So I said, yeah, okay, I'll move down there, and then I can help out a little bit more. And so I see him from time to time, and obviously this year has been a lot less because of the pandemic and everything else, and not wanting to go into your buddy's house who has liver issues and Parkinson's, and because that's not what you want to do in case you spread it or something. And but he's a great guy, funny guy, and I got some great stories about him too.
Well, you know what? I think, on that note, I think maybe we should just turn it over to our friend, Mr. Ludzik, and hear what he has to say. So let's bring him in.
Absolutely.
Okay, Squid, our guest today was chosen by Chicago 28th overall in the 1980 entry draft, played most of his career for the Hawks, coached in the minors along with the stint in the NHL with the Tampa Bay Lightning for a few years before embarking on a media career. He's a fellow author like you and I, and now spends his time running his foundation for the fight against Parkinson's. Please welcome Steve Ludzik. Ludzik, how are we doing today?
Guys, Squid, congratulations on your book coming out, my friend.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Catch 22. Michael, I love the painting, the mural you got behind you. And is that Dave Keon had living with the puck there?
Yeah, that's Davey Keon. That's him. Yep.
Yeah, it is actually.
I thought you liked that. Yeah, that's
for Squid somewhere in that picture.
It's even a couple years before him. So that's
they're playing the Blackhawks. They're playing the Blackhawks too.
Yeah, I just got a call yesterday from Cliff Coral, Squid.
Oh, did you?
And he said to say hi to you.
Oh, good. Yeah, say hello to him.
Yeah, great guy.
Hey,
Yeah,
Ludzik, tell us what are you doing with your time these days with through this whole ordeal?
Wash my hands, wear a mask.
Yeah.
And really not much different than I did before.
Well, the foundation is doing some wonderful, wonderful work, and we'd like to get into that. And what we'd like to talk about is now with the pandemic has shut everything down, obviously. Now moving into 2021, are the plans still to go ahead? I know I talk to Dan Lancione all the time, your buddy there who's one of the workers.
Actually, you know what? I got up this morning and I called Dan. I said, because he's usually in charge of this stuff.
Yeah.
And that's why I didn't call him early enough, I guess.
He just sent me a note.
Yeah.
He said, "Are you guys recording live?"
Yeah. He knows anything with computers I'm done with.
That's him. So what's the plan going into 21 if things sort of?
We're going to do something for next summer. I don't think it's fair when businesses are hurting so bad, and that's our lifeline. And we've raised over $1 million for the Parkinson's Foundation at the Hotel du Shaver with help of Ricky Vibe and guys like Michael yourself. And it's turned out to be a huge event. And never in my life I ever think that I'd be involved in something that it feels so good to help other people.
Well, people are noticing, Ludzik, and keep up the great work. And anything we can do to help promoting it going forward, Squid, we're always there to try and help.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And well, the golf tournament, the roast has been legendary. I mean, the
Yeah.
guests have been.
I can't
people that have
talk
been
you up there on the be roasted, can I, Squid? And you know, you sell a lot of books if you're the roast.
I may have to be roasted. I don't know.
No, you know what?
That'll be worth it too. I was just going to say that let's get into some of the we can come back to all this at the end. I do want to talk a little bit more about it moving forward, but let's just talk about you growing up in Toronto as a young hockey player. Just talk about your mind. You played in some pretty good clubs growing up through the minor leagues in Toronto.
Yeah, I think our Bantam team was so good. Mark Osborne, Larry Murphy, and somebody else got cut from it. That's how good our minor Bantam team was.
Yeah, Jack's back.
Jack's Pack was it was owned by. It's funny how the connection. Jack's Pack was owned by John F. Bass, who brought Squid in as a baby bull. And we never lost a game for 2 years. We beat Gretzky's team the year he scored 375 goals. I mean, no, he didn't lose any games that year except for one. It was to us. But he was so great, and it was an honor. At the end of the game, I remember him trying to get off the ice because he was really in an emotional state. And I just want to go over and tap him on the pads and say, "Hey, you're the real deal, man. You're unbelievable." And the gentleman that's looking with the gray hair, one of the guys with the gray hair, we had a lot of fun in Chicago, and
So
Smith and Wolanski story. We got to tell that one up, Squid.
Yeah, you met Wayne Gretzky on a bus or something.
Yeah.
And then subsequently something happened a little bit later on. But tell us about that story.
I know what you're talking about. No, Gretzky. I don't know if he's even a huge fan of mine. Paul Coffey said he had a little bit of eyes irritated him. I think I irritated a lot of guys. But you can't take it away. He's a phenomenon. He's the greatest player of our era. And I'm happy. I enjoyed every goal scoring minute he got against our line. We're supposed to check him. Good luck. Good luck.
But as the story goes, didn't you go to meet? You met him on a bus, I think, one time. He was on a. You went up. You guys were in a very competitive state, going back and forth at each other's, even at the '74 Quebec Pee Wee tournament.
Yeah.
And you introduced yourself to him on the bus, and he actually said, "You said I'm Steve Ludzik," and he said,
"Oh no! You just I know why I didn't get it. I was at a Toronto Marley hockey game with my best friend Johnny Kirk. That's
okay.
Bus. It was a subway.
Okay.
And Gretzky was supposed to play Bantam against us that year. I played for the Marlies. He played for going to play for the Nats. And he came on the compartment. It was just him and a guy named I can't remember right now. His dad owned Modelski. It doesn't matter. And I said, "That's Gretzky." I said, "Kirky, my best friend." I said, "That's Gretzky. I'm gonna go down and wish him luck and hope we'll see him along the way this year." He goes, "Ludzik, don't go down there. Don't go down there." I said, "I gotta go down there. You guy's great." I go all the way down the middle. There's nobody in the car. He's sitting. Bruce Ivanishin is the guy he's sitting with. I said, "Wayne, Steve Ludzik," and he said, "I'm not Wayne. I'm Yogi Bear." And I was just like, "Oh man!" And it's just I walked back, and my buddy Johnny Kirk said, "Man, he make you look bad, like really bad." And I said to Kirky, I said, "I'm gonna get him this year for that slate. If I don't get him in Junior B, I'm gonna get him in Junior A. If I don't get him Junior A, I'm getting in the National Hockey League." Well, son of a bitch, I never got a chance to play. He played a year earlier junior, and then he went to National Hockey. We were still playing junior hockey. But he was. I can't say anything. That was not like him. He was usually a pretty a very nice man, and he's turned into a great spot for the National Hockey League.
Well, then
that's where you got me. It was a bus. It was a subway. Yeah.
Okay. So, but then didn't you play against him in two-handem the first time you played against him? And
yeah. And he said to me, "What's that for?" I goes, "It was Fred Flintstone." He called himself.
Yeah.
Yogi Bear. I said, "That's fucking payback, Fred Flintstone, for And he goes to Paul Coffey on the bench. He goes, "Your buddy Ludzik, you got like some screws loose because you tore my hand off with a slash." And he goes, he just has a long memory. Yeah.
That's a good story.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of which, your junior career, Ludzik, you had quite the career in Niagara Falls. It was outstanding, actually. I mean, the all-time leading scorer. You made the all-time 5-man all-star team. That must have been a real fun time for you to play hockey. Well, you live there today, so it must have been real good.
It was, and it was a tough time in my life because I was a big scorer. Despite with my HL stats, where I was always a big scorer. And I got sick the year I was playing provincial junior A when I was 15. And I was leading the league in scoring, and I got Crohn's disease. And that would have been 77. I knew I was going to play hockey again. I wasn't drafted in the 7th round. Sam McMaster, gentlemen, hockey people remember Sam was the guy who brought Gretzky over. Sam was the guy that took him out to Gretzky to LA. But it just, I think that if you look at Gretzky's record and stuff that he's done throughout his career, great players are great guys. And we're very lucky in this sport. I don't mean even waxing apples, getting off my topic, but the even better players, they're even better people. And Michael, you know that as well. Yeah. You're good friends with Billy Gardner, great guy.
Yep.
Just a great guy. And I'll leave it at that.
Well, I was going to say to you, now, I mean, you lit it up that your last year with the Flyers. You're being modest. I mean, you had a big year. So you actually, you all of a sudden, you not getting drafted high, you go to the O, you light it up. So going through that year, all of a sudden now things are starting to fall into place for you. Who were kicking the tires in you as far as NHL teams go leading into the draft? Or was anybody talking to you?
Oakland Seals. That's a joke. Nobody talked. Freddie Stanfield was our coach in junior, and Freddie said there was some interest in Blackhawks. I just wanted to play. And I didn't care what team I drafted. I just want to play in the National Hockey League. As everybody knows, that's what you play the game for. And I was lucky to go into a team that was a good team, but really good centermen. I remember getting drafted, and I'm going Dennis Savard, Terry Ruskowski, Tom Lysiak, Billy Gardner. I had to go play, and that's the thing. I played left wing most of my career because we were so log-jammed at center ice.
Well, you forgot Troy Murray got drafted the same year as you.
Troy Murray. Billy Gardner, Billy Gardner's one of the better players I ever played with. He just couldn't get a spot, on that squad.
But don't forget, you had Stan Mikita, Tom Lysiak, Daryl Sutter. Yeah. That was all your centers.
Yeah, Tom Lysiak, one of my best buddies, who's since passed. But Daryl Sutter was a winger. But there's a logjam at center ice.
Like you look at all the players in the National Hockey League, especially in our area anyway, they were always the best players on their minor hockey teams or their junior teams and everything. And then all of a sudden, a lot of them get to the NHL and they got to kind of reinvent their game and become a different type of player, which obviously you kind of had to do.
Yeah. Like guys would say to me, Ludzik, what are you checking? And junior, I just grab the puck and go with it. And that's why I was really careful when I coached guys of the norm, like a guy like LeCavier. I would say to him, don't be begged. You got to check, obviously, but you got to try a guy at the blue line. No sense having LeCavier playing for you. It's like asking Secretariat to pull a milk wagon. You break his heart. You got to let the guys with the natural touch, you got to let them go. That'd be like Squid telling you can't shoot the puck down the right side.
Yeah.
Shoot the puck. Well, you might as well sit on the bench.
Or up in the press box.
Up in the press box. Yeah, I know. But you're right. And you have to be willing to take a role they give you and do it.
Yeah.
And do it. And,
well, I can tell you,
there's 100,000 other guys that'll do your job for you if you don't want to do it.
Yeah,
well,
absolutely right.
Well, I can tell you that 1980 camp that you went to, your first camp, and Guards was at that camp, and he phoned his dad the first day and said, I'll be going back to Moncton. He said, first off, with Lysiak and Stan and all these other guys there, Dennis Savard, he's a lock. They've had 2 skates, and he said he was already on the team before they even went any further. One day.
He was so good to watch as an 18-year-old. I would go to the rink early the 4 teams in a kind of round robin tournament, right? I would go even if I wasn't on the schedule to be in the first group up. He would grab that puck and he would go with it like a whirlwind. And it's something to be said when he want to prove that he's better than Wickenheiser. Remember that? That was the whole thing.
Yeah.
And Doug Wickenheiser was a good hockey player. He was not a poor hockey player. He was a good player. But just unfortunately, in the spot of being first overall, he didn't deserve that beating he took from. Hey, you're the first pick overall. He wasn't Dennis Savard. Hey, nobody's Dennis Savard.
Yeah.
Nobody's
I
Dennis.
played junior against Denny in the Quebec League, and then I remember being in Chicago, and of course I played with him and Larms, one of your best buddies, Larms, who was and for the life of me, I don't understand why he's not in the Hall of Fame. I think he deserves to be. I think he was one of the best two-way players ever to play the game. And but anyway, so I'm playing with them, and I remember one night we're playing Edmonton, and Denny got the puck. Not only did he beat the 5 guys on the Edmonton Oilers, but he beat 2 of them twice and scored a goal. Like we're literally standing there watching him.
Yeah, he zigzagged east, west, north, south. But that ended up costing us because he tried pulling that shit a couple times after that, trying to ad-lib 12 guys 5 times, whatever. And it cost us goals. We said, hey, we already got the picturesque goal, short-handed goal we've ever seen in our life. Just get down the ice. Just please throw it down the ice.
Well, I was going to say to you, for you, like it just kind of a couple of things here. Your first camp, you show up and all of a sudden there's all this competition at center in front of you. Emotionally, Ludzik, if you maybe just take through us, like a lot of young NHLers like yourself, you have outstanding careers leading to your first NHL camp, but all of a sudden now you're facing your first real challenge, playing against guys who are as highly touted as you are, or equally, or if not even better or highly more skilled.
Well, I'll tell you.
What was your mindset?
Well, I just finished coming off of Derek Sanderson was my assistant coach, and he said goodbye to Larms and I when we were flying off, and he said, "You'll be able to tell if you're going to make the team by the number they give you in training camp." And I was 63 and Larms was 64. The next year we came, we didn't make it. We played them. It was 55 and 54. The year we made it, we're 28, 29. And that it was funny. We were saying, I was Turks talking about the number they give you. You'll know if you got a chance to make the team. They could have given us a farther number down the list. But I think what you do is like you see guys, and Squid played pro at a young age, but you see guys, you're at the Chicago Stadium, that's big in itself. Oh. And then you see Stan Mikita, and you watch Stan, and I remember watching him in the dressing room. He played 21 years with that body. He had skinny little arms and little pot belly, but he was just great. Yeah. Tom Lysak, Squid can tell you that the times have changed. Tom Lysak, he would come to training camp. He didn't put skates on. Never mind do 5 miles a day and sprints and plyometric. Tom Lysak was maybe the greatest guy I ever played with. Yeah, the hell, I'm just going to go play. He'd be the best guy on the ice. He'd be the best guy on the ice. And he hadn't touched a skate or even put running shoes on in the summertime.
Well, that was our era. I mean, not many guys did a whole lot of training in the summer. I mean, you kind of got started in August, and you skated every day in August, and then you went to camp. And of course, we had 3 weeks before we played an exhibition game anyway, so we had time to get somewhat in shape. And that was the way it was in the 80s and the 70s and the 60s. Well, in the 60s, they were working in the summer.
Yeah, they would, and they say they went to camp, and I golfed around a golf a day. I'm in great shape. Imagine showing that on your itinerary. Yeah. I got to golf, and that'll show if I'm in shape or not. Let's see if we get NVO2 on a golf cart.
Well, Punch and Knock used to send a letter out for that. They'd have to do 20 sit-ups, 20 push-ups, and play 9 holes of golf every day, at least.
In Peterborough.
Yeah.
There's a great book out about the Leafs of '64. and it's all done through training camp.
Yeah.
And, it's amazing. I know, Mike, you're a big fan like I am of that nostalgia stuff.
Yeah.
And it's something to watch the players like they had to walk to the rink because that was part of their exercise. If you scored 10 goals, you had to do 10 push-ups. Eddie Shack said, I only got 5. I only got to do 5 push-ups. God rest his soul.
So
5 in his career, I think.
Eddie. Yeah.
You know, though, you watch those Leaf games. He was a good hockey player. And he came out of junior with a reputation as a scorer for the Guelph Biltmores.
Yeah.
That's right.
Gordie Howe told me that he was the only guy that he went to in the summertime and said, hey, look, either one of us is going to get killed. We're running each other like bull moose. Let's make a deal. You stay away from me, I'll stay away. Because he hurt Gordie Howe Gordie Howe. Eddie Shack, he was a big man for that day and age.
He was.
15.
And he could skate.
And he could skate, and he was fearless.
Yeah.
And Gordie Howe told me that was the only guy he made a deal with. Eddie Shack.
No kidding, eh? Wow.
Well, for Eddie Shack, you just put a $sign in front of it and he'll do anything you want.
Oh, he wasn't stupid.
No, he wasn't. He was a pretty sharp guy, and he certainly saw how that nose for a value sort of commercial sort of fit him to a T.
Pop shop, Christmas trees,
all that stuff.
Yeah, he'd sell you a Christmas tree and buy it off you afterwards.
And then resell it to somebody else.
Yeah.
Now, Ludzik, what was it like playing for you coming from Toronto? You go to an original 6 team playing in Chicago, your first time through the league, and even coming into Toronto for the first time. What did that cost you for tickets?
The first game I ever played was against the Quebec Nordiques. And it was 8-0, and the coach was Keith Magnuson, and I guess he couldn't get any worse. They put me out there. And I intercepted a D-to-D pass by a slumbering Moose Dupont. He must have been sleeping, did not see me. I just picked it off. And for some reason, I took a slap shot from the blue line. And I don't think I've ever scored for the blue line in my life. Dan Bouchard was sleeping, I think, at the switch, and I went under him. And I went and got the puck, and Ruskowski said, maybe that thing, I'm going to get out mounted for you. So after about 2 weeks, I go to Roscoe, hey, where was that puck? My first goal. He goes, I lost it, Ludzik, I'm sorry. Now, he's a better man than me. I would have just got any puck and got it mounted. So there's your first NHL goal. But he was honest enough. Playing in Toronto, it was big for me because my mom and dad could see me. But I played at the Gardens so much with Jack's Pack, and I knew every corner. I knew where the pop machines were for a quarter. I knew where they hid this and that. It wasn't a life altering experience. Montreal was more than that, and I realized when you walked in that rink, you had murals, huge murals of Howie Moran's and Rock Richard. By the time you got to the dressing room, you thought you were playing those guys that night. You know, it's a little different lineup. Guy Carbonneau.
Well, for you back in that period, they had a pretty good team, Chicago, obviously. Yeah. So all of a sudden now you make it, you're setting a lineup, you're playing. Did you ever feel at some point you were a little too far down or maybe if you're playing somewhere else, you got a better opportunity? Because as we've talked about lots of times on this show, it's about opportunity and seizing the moment, but you can't have one without the other.
No, and I had a really good, my rookie year, a really good playoff run. And I played with Kurt Fraser and Timmy Higgins. And then I remember that summer, Gus Vidali was our agent, said, he talked to you about playing left wing. I said, I'm not a left winger. He said, I think you're going to play left wing, and that's where I played. So it's a living.
No, but did you ever think you would play, if you got to play somewhere else, you get a better opportunity?
I always did, but it never came. And that's one thing. You got to be a master of your own destiny. And it didn't work out the way I envisioned it, but that's the way life is. You don't get everything you want. And the only league that's been tough on me is one with the NHL. As a player and as a coach, I was in Tampa Bay for a year and a half. And I preface that statement by saying Al Arbour would have had a hard time. And not that I compare myself to Al Arbour, not at all. But his team was the worst team in National Hockey for 2 years in a row. He was about to get gone, and Mr. Torrey stood up and said, "No, that's my coach." And Squid knows that the pressure on coaches to perform now. The team goes in a slight tailspin, you're gone.
Yeah.
The average is maybe a year, maybe a year and a half, 2 years.
They don't wait around anymore. I mean,
You don't wait.
No, it's a success-based business, and if you're not successful in your first couple of years, you're gone. I mean, ask Bruce Boudreau.
Yeah, look at Patty. Yeah,
2-3 years, does well, and still gets fired because it's not good enough. It's not the Stanley Cup.
And you set a standard, and you try to hit that standard every year, and unfortunately, you can't. Michael, I want to tell a quick story, if I can, about.
Absolutely, you can.
I went out for dinner with the gentleman down here in New York City, and I didn't make a lot of money. And I watched my pennies as strong as I could.
Yeah.
And Dennis Savard, we were a very close team, but sometimes you go for dinner and some guys go off here. I go to Swiss Chalet. But
not that night.
I go with Squid, Dennis Savard, and I can't remember who, Dougie Wilson. That's pretty big company, right? And the bloody menu from Smith & Wollensky, just the sounds of it, I know it's going to be expensive. And I'm looking at the steaks here are $60 a steak. And the waiter comes over and he says, I really recommend the shrimp cocktail. I said, $25 for a shrimp cocktail. I bet you recommend it. And Squid just fell off his seat. And we won the next night in New York.
Yeah.
And Squid goes, see, Ludzik, he always comes back to help you. You pay a little bit more for the meal. You got a goal tonight. We won in New York. Everything's good. Fun. But I tell you, what I learned the most of Squid, when you play against them, there's some guys you play against, you don't really realize how good they are. And there's other guys, when you play with them, you go, geez, he's not as good as I thought. Rick Vibe was a guy that you didn't realize how hard he worked to score. And when you play against him, you should be, he was like RoboCop in front of the net. Like he took beatings, and I think by the time you finished, you had a horse collar around your neck, armadillo padding in the back. And they weren't, and he had a great shot. But I think I always try to steal something from everybody that I play with. And Ricky was always good to his fans, always a gentleman. And he came to play.
So now, Ludzik, how did you get into coaching?
Hey?
How'd you get into the coaching?
I retired, and Rick Dudley had said to me, I think you'd be a good coach. Keep in touch with me. And he got me a job in Muskegon, Michigan, in the old United League. Yep. And I coached there for 2 years. And if I made mistakes, I didn't want to make them on canvas. So I learned, I had great guys. I got as much respect, maybe even more so than the guys that made millions. These guys are making Squid knows he coached in the East Coast.
Yeah.
These guys making $300 a week, and they're diving headlong in the slap shots and just dying to play one game in the National Hockey League. Yeah. And we ended up getting instant credibility because we as coaches have played in the NHL. These guys would saw their right arm off to play in the National Hockey League. But I especially with my health issues now, I hear from a lot of the guys, and a lot of them from that Muskegon days, when you got to grind a guy down on a salary to make the budget, and it's kind of tough trying to convince him he's the best left winger in the league the next day. You're grinding him on money, but you learn and you go along and you do what you got to do.
Now, what was some of the, now you come from the National Hockey League and you played in the minors yourself, but what were some of the head shaking moments coaching the Muskegon as an example and the minors, and you'd say, only here this could happen?
Well, I had a goalie by the name of Rockbelly, and he's a junior A kid. I knew a little bit about him, and he got a flu bug, and we were going up to Flint, Michigan to play. I said, well, you got to play tonight. We don't have a backup. We couldn't get a backup. And he says, he had a 96.5 temperature or something like this. And I said, I put the gear on our trainer. Our trainer was our goalie that night. I said, guys, you can't allow a shot on that. And we damn well almost did it. We gave 6 shots. They got 6 goals. But that may have been Mark Roof. The guy's name was Mark Roof. And he stuck after the game. He had a cigarette in his hand. He's out talking to all the reporters in Flint and this game. I go, hey, trainer. He goes, I got back the equipment up. We don't need doing interviews. But that's a true. And I knew. I said, we're gonna have trouble with this goaltending situation. And then in that league, the toughest team was Thunder Bay.
Yeah.
I got it, and they were they had a pile of. They were a good team, but they were really vicious. And the first game was I coached there. We got beat like 3-0 at home, 4-0 at home by Thunder Bay. I went to the owner, Tony Listman. I said, "Who wins this league?" And he goes, "Thunder Bay." And I said, "Okay, there's a new set of rules. Like we can't play by the rules and win. We got to get some. We got guys that make the martinis. We need some guys that grill the steaks." And we found them. Believe me, we found them. But we ended up going to the 7th game with them to win the championship. But I think Squid will back me up. All your guys have special memories, and you know, inside you have special feelings for the guys.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you said that because I was on a Zoom thing last night with South Carolina Stingrays. The guy works for them, and he had 3 current players, and then Dan Fornell, who played for me, and another guy who stayed in Charleston after he played there. And you know, like I have nothing but fond memories of all those guys that coached in the minors. Like I'll tell you, they would go through the wall, like you said, to play even in the American League.
Yeah.
You know, and I just had a great bunch of guys with great character. And in 96, 97, we won the championship. And you know, I just had a team full of character that wouldn't give up. And Ed Courtney played for me that year. He scored 50 some odd goals, had 115 points. The second last game of the season, he 2-hands a guy across the face and gets suspended for the whole playoffs.
Yeah.
And I'm going, how are we going to replace those goals? And I went in, I said, well, everybody's just got to chip in a little bit. So guys that don't score that many goals, you're going to have to score 1 or 2 more. And damn it, if they didn't do it, and we won the championship.
I remember that.
Yeah, it was.
And it feels like a Stanley Cup to you.
Oh, and it does to them too. And so because of that, you know, I still talk. Jared Bednar was on that team, who coaches Colorado now. Jason Fitzsimmons, who kind of runs Hershey for Washington, and he's their head pro scout. And you know, so a lot of them have stayed in hockey and you know, gone on to different careers, and it's kind of nice to see.
So now, Ludzik, you end up, you get the job with the big team after, you know, playing around in the minors for a little bit, coaching in the minors, that is. Tampa, talk about that experience. And how'd you get the job?
First of all, it led to, I coached the Detroit Vipers.
Yeah.
We're the class of the National Hockey League. We everybody wanted to play for the Vipers. And Mr. Davidson, our owner, bought the Tampa Bay team and asked me if I'd be interested in coaching it. I said, yeah, sure. And I still say the funniest thing that it's, you know, you hear things along the way. I remember we had a meeting, and Tom Wilson, who was our president, said, Ludzik, well, you know, this is a 4-year plan, but you may only be here for 2. You know, I'm sitting there, and we you know, the first thing is you got a team that's you make it compete, and that we did. And then you got so many young guys. You gotta live with them. You gotta make them, put them in spots where they may not be comfortable. I remember Gregory Campbell.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He played for me, and I said, "Where do you see yourself with the Florida Panthers?" He goes, "I'm going to be a second line center." And I said, "I love your confidence, but for you to break in that NHL line, you got to beat somebody on the 4th line first, and you got to learn how to check, and you got to learn how to take faceoffs in the last second. You got to like that pressure." And then if he didn't do it,
Yeah, he did.
He did it. He worked his butt off, and
Didn't he win a Stanley Cup with the Bruins?
Yeah, Bruce. Yeah, he sure did.
Yeah, yeah.
So what's the biggest difference between coaching, say, in the American Hockey League and the National Hockey League, or even in the East, like the difference that you found immediately?
No difference. You're dealing with athletes, high-strung athletes, highly skilled, talented athletes. Hey, you can ask the gentleman right here, if we go and play a game of ball hockey, like it's not going to end up good. Because you're going to compete, whether you're playing a ball hockey game or not. Anybody wants to go to watch the Markland next goal wins? Check that out. Next goal wins on my documentary on the Markland Marauder ball. That's how serious we took it. We got a documentary on our ball hockey team.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I played in the Toronto Ball Hockey League when I was playing in Toronto in the summer with Gabby Boudreau, and we were on the same team, and we'd play on the power play together, and it was great because we played our offsides. We'd throw it across for one-timers, and that ball would curve and everything. Anyway, we're playing one of our a game, and this they were younger, much younger than we were, and they teenagers, and they were running around like crazy. This one guy was cross-checking me all night long. Finally, I said to him, I said, listen, if you do that again, something's going to happen. So he cross-checked me. And I two-handed him right across the visor, cracked his visor. And then on the way out, I'm walking out because I got kicked out of the game, and their bench is yapping at me. And then I'd start running, and I dove in their bench and started throwing them. And
I know where you were because it was Alderwood, Mimico. Yeah. You're down there. I know because I heard about the next day. Squid went nuts. He jumped on the team bench, started slapping guys around, giving education slaps.
Well, the thing is like, to your point, it doesn't matter what we do. We're competitive, and we're going to go all out.
Yeah.
I mean, my wife and I, if we used to play back. I tried to teach her how to play backgammon, and we were in Florida, and there's like the high tables and the high chairs, and there's a backgammon board in the table. So I'm trying to teach her how to play, and I beat her about 6 or 7 in a row, and she was just like me. She grabbed the thing and threw it up in the air. All the pieces are going all over the bar. Got up and walked out.
Well, Ludz, I was going to say to you, we had Gabby on, a few weeks ago. And one of the things he talked about was, that's why I asked you that question. You answered basically the same way. He said one of the biggest, I don't want to call it disappointment, but one of the biggest things he looks at when he goes to send a player down, which is the wrong term, when he's sending him for better training or better conditioning somewhere, or tutoring to a different league below the NHL, these players have got their heads down. He's looking to the guy saying to him, why you have your head down? You're not going to some beer league in Markham where you're playing 11 o'clock night with a bunch of 50-year-olds. You're going to a real good league. These guys are good. It's competitive, and you're going to get better, and it's only going to help your career. Why are you going down there with your head down? Go down there and play well, and we'll get you back here. And that is the attitude he's tried to instill in his players all the time.
I take it. I played in, before I got to Chicago. Farmer and I played in Moncton, New Brunswick. And the coach of the team was Orville Tessier, who coached Kitchener the year before against Niagara Falls. And he was not a big fan of mine. I used to pick up ice shades and fire at Orville's head. And he ended up becoming my favorite coach. He locked us out of our dressing room one night in Moncton. We had guys were ordering hot dogs, and we can't get our dressing room. Orville locked us out of the dressing room. He would say, there's guys making thousands of dollars down here not producing. And I loved him as a coach though. And he was good for young guys because he pushed you hard. And Squid, I just saw Mike Kazicki the other day.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I bumped into him. And just great memories from playing in New Brunswick. And I know you're saying, Michael, as a coach, you feel it's worse saying to the guy who's on a tryout, your dreams were over. That would really hurt me.
Yeah,
I just going to the American League. He's got a contract. He knows what he was getting to. Some of these guys come in and unfortunately, people are watching, but they're not watching. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if that makes sense, Squid.
No, it does.
Like, you got to be so much better than a guy under contract to get in contract in camp. You have to be so much better than him. And And justly, some things happen to some guys.
Well,
You know, if we think that we made the NHL because we're that great, it's just a little bit like this, and you get a lucky break or you get a chance to produce in a certain situation.
Yeah, that's that's the way, right, Squid?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that too, because I mean, it's absolutely right. I mean, you know, I mean, the difference between the best players in the American League and the guys in the NHL are probably about like that big. I mean, the guys in the American League, the best players are real good players.
Yeah. Look at Jody.
But the problem, you look at when we played, it was a little different. I mean, the majority of the team were on two-way contracts.
Yeah, that's
There
right.
was probably 3-4 guys on each team that were on one-way contracts. Now, everybody, except for their entry level, are pretty much on one-way contracts. A lot of them have no trade, no movement, you know, so, but back then it was so much easier to get someone to the minors, and they took advantage of that.
But Ludzik, I was going to say to you, now you as a coach coming from what was one of the, maybe it was a funny moment, maybe it was a sad moment, just on that situation where you had to break a player's heart or you had to send them down. How did you handle that? Was there any players that stood out that you had some fun with over this, or that stuck in your mind over the years?
Well, you know, I had a kid that was trying out for Mississauga IceDogs. I took a year and coached at junior, and I loved it. And he was going to be a nuclear doctor of brain surgery. And at that time, I knew that I had Parkinson's. I knew deep down that I had it. And he was really upset he couldn't make the team, and he shed some tears, which I love that. I love a guy, emotional guy. And I was about to say to him, hey, keep going to your books. You might be helping me out a few years along the way here. But as a coach, you have to be a good actor. Everything could be falling around you, and you can't let the players know that. You can't. It's good times, bad times. When you're not feeling great, that's when you got to feel great. You got to show the guys that you're above getting down. And then, of course, we all have moments when we have, spots like that. But
now, listen. So, speaking of which, coaching at Mississauga, talk about that experience. Now, that was and the players. Okay, so now you're dealing with kids. Now, how did you find getting your message across to kids looking at you who had played in the show? You've been there. Was it much different than playing with guys, say, or coaching guys in the minor pros? What was the difference?
Well, I would go back before junior. My first year coaching, we had a guy had an immigration problem. And I assumed the kids that coming out of junior knew how to trap and forecheck and different types of forecheck. Yeah. And we got smoked in Chatham one night, and I had to drive one of the players across the border in my car. I said, you know what I mean? He played for Justin Morrison, his name was. He played for Kingston. Mm-hmm. I said, do you know anything that? And he just said, Ludzik, I got no idea what you're talking about. We never knew any of this stuff. So I went, okay, go back to square one. This is a dumping. This is a fork, and slow it down. I thought something I thought that they had learned maybe when they're kids. But then I look at my own career. The only coach I really had that was, besides Roger Nielsen, that was particular about teaching him was Bert Templeton, who has a reputation as a fiery, hot-headed guy. Actually, he's a great teacher, probably the best, and he's so far ahead of the game conditioning-wise than anybody else. Our teams were very good with him.
So what I want to talk about is now you played for in your
Mike.
days, you played for some coaches like you get the National Hockey League. Well, you touched on everything. I want to get into a little bit of this with you about being the historical, fanatical guy you are yourself, and that's why we connected so well. But here you're going to Chicago, and you got Stan Mikita in the dressing room. You're looking around at Tom Lysiak, Tony Esposito. You've got, and even playing under Bob Pulford and Keith Magnuson. How did you react to all of that? I mean, that just.
Well, you know what really stuck to me was Stan. It was his last training camp, and they gave him a rocking chair as a going away present. Thanks very much for 21 years. Here's a rocking chair, And I remember one guy said, we should let it on fire right now. But that was the way teams were just like that. And I don't think Blackhawks meant it as disrespect, but Stan played there 21 bloody years. I mean,
you think it would be a rocking chair made of gold.
Yeah, exactly. You know? And,
well, now what about some of the coaches you played for in Chicago? You played for some pretty fiery guys. So let's start with, you mentioned Orville already. Let's go to him. Now, the players had a different name for him. I think they used to call him oral testicles.
No, they used to call him Mount Orville.
No.
Lava was spewing all over the dressing room. I didn't mind that, though. I remember Roger Nielsen was our assistant coach at the time. And Roger was a technical guy because Orville wasn't technical at all. He was fire and brimstone. And we were watching film, and the shot from the point, and it was right along the ice. And Orville said, that's where the puck should be, right along the ice for a shot to deflection. And Roger, instead of keeping quiet, Roger went, well, we've done tests in Vancouver, and you got to keep about 3 feet to 4 feet off the ice so it doesn't get tipped. Well, we had the coaches going at it right in front of us. And when you know the goal was scored right along the ice, and Orville go, well, how about this goal? This isn't 3-4 feet on the ice. And Roger was like, yeah, but that's, you know, I liked Orville. Bob Pulford took over twice as a coach and from his GM position. And they were all old school. Like Squid, you remember, like, let's get our bag of flesh. We're not winning. Let's skate for an hour and a half. Squid and I were involved in the worst bag skate I've ever been seen in captivity with Mike Keenan. Squid, the poor guy, cramped up like a shrimp and a Barbie on the ice. He's in a fetal position. And I'm telling you, Mike, skating, when you were in trouble, when one half the team comes up in red and half the team comes up in black, you know you're in trouble. And Squid might recall Dennis Savard after about 10
minutes. He wouldn't stop.
He wouldn't stop. He'd turn at the end and do a wide, and Keenan would go, red, let's go again.
Go again. And
he did it 3 times. Sadly, it didn't hurt him to skate. And
Doug Wilson grabbed
him and threw him. Yeah, you remember that, Squid?
Yeah, threw him against the
board.
Threw him
against the glass. And then Savvy went out of his mind. He really overheated. He started taking all his equipment off, like something slap shot, arm pads here, stick there, and he's yelling for Dan Vincelette to open up the door, get me out of this place. And he literally had a meltdown. His gasket's overheated.
Well, Mike Keenan could do that to you.
That's come up a few times in this show, Mike Keenan.
You know what?
Now,
I think he got away from the rink. I think he's a pretty good guy.
Yeah, that's
a good
usually
coach,
are, right?
We'll say that.
Yeah, they were usually. Well, I was going to just carry on a little bit further with Orville because you guys were really close to really competing for the cup in that mid-'80s team. And do you think that he made a comment one time, that heart comment with the players was done sarcastically in an interview? Things seemed to go a little sideways after that. Did he lose the respect of the room after that?
We were playing, Michael. We're playing the Edmonton Oilers. And Orville had used that line numerous times to us about contacting Mayo Clinic for heart transplants.
Yeah.
He used it, but now we're in Hockey Night in Canada. It's front and center, and we're playing the Oilers. So he got big publicity. The reason we didn't beat the Oilers was Coffey, Gretzky, Curry, Messier. They had a fourth line guy, and he grabbed a hold of Al Secord. And we were like, oh my God, this is the guy, what was his name? Pozar?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And he was a strong guy, and he just like it was unbelievable. And then you get by Lowe and Lumley and Dr. Randy Gregg, and then you're in on the real doctor.
You got Huddy and you got,
And I don't think those guys, they could put the skates on today to compete with some NHL teams.
If they were together, they probably could.
At 60 years of age.
Yeah.
So after some of the crazy guys you've played hockey for, and you can jump in this one too, Squid, and you've both you played for some real characters. Now, some of the guys, if you ever thought, and I'll throw this at you guys, maybe one day if you got somebody like Bob Murray, Doug Wilson, Sutter, all you guys said, and this just doesn't apply to guys you play with, but anybody who's gone from player to coach, and maybe sit down with some of the guys you've played with and maybe sort of exchange sort of thoughts back and forth that maybe some of the stuff they were doing to us in our early years, now that I was put in that position, really went out as outrageous as we thought at the time.
Yeah. Well, Squid, how do you want to answer that?
Well, I mean, in our time, it was outrageous, the things that were done, but it was the norm back then.
Yeah.
It's if you look back from today, what coaches did and things that went on, you would say like that was ridiculous. But for us, it was normal, and we didn't know any different. That's the thing. Like I had coaches that did things that, I didn't even question because it was just the way it was. And you listen to the coach and you do what he says, and that's kind of the way you were brought up. But we had some really, really crazy, intense coaches. I mean, I had Keenan, I had Tam Maloney, Brophy, I had Duds.
Muckler.
Yeah, Duds.
Duds, who's got I'm talking about guys that have bad tempers and lose it. I mean, it can get a little scary sometimes.
Well, where I was going with that was what I meant was then when you guys got put in that position to be a coach, did you find that you had to do some things sometimes, like Ludzik, you mentioned that sometimes you have to be a good actor, but some of the things that you did as a coach, maybe you could almost see a little bit of reasoning why they did what they were doing when you guys were playing for them?
A little bit. Like I probably never really just bag skated my guys because I thought that as a coach, you show that you can't put your finger on why you're losing. Are we losing because our neutral zone's not good? Are we losing because we're just a half a step off the forecheck? I always thought coaches just blew the whistle for an hour and a half. That's frustration. And I thought you think you pretty well lose your team when that happens. Guys are going, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I think where we changed a lot is socially as athletes. After games now you see these fruit bars and milkshakes and protein things. When we were in Chicago, after the game, the first 2 or 3 years, you'd have 3 beers, Budweiser, big cans sitting in your locker spot. And it was like, and I didn't drink beer back then. So I give my 3 to Tom Lysiak. So you'd have 6 before you got out the door. But they thought that was good for you. And now we know it's not. It's not good for you.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, but like when I got into coaching and like Mike talking about, I looked at every coach that I played for, and I kind of
good, bad.
Looked at Tennessee's good, the bad, the ugly, and I came to the realization that probably communication was the best thing that I could do with my players. As young or as old as they were, I had to make sure that, first of all, they all felt that they were as important as the other guy. Like the guy that scores 50 goals, the guy that kills penalties is just as important. And you got to communicate to get those things across to these young men. And you know what? It really served me well to take that approach rather than, I mean, there was probably 2 or 3 times a year, maybe, where I come in and threw a couple of things and went crazy. But that was it, because it would, as a player, I knew that after a while, you just tuned that out.
You hear thunder and lightning every day. You don't think about it.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
so I communicated as best.
It's got to be the hard. You think about it. Hockey's probably and it's probably the hardest game to coach. You don't have timeouts. I remember being in San Antonio, LA Lakers coach. What's the guy? The coach of LA Lakers. Riley.
Riley, yeah, Pat Riley.
He didn't watch the game till the last 5 minutes. He's eating a piece of gum and fooling around, and I'm going to the guy I'm watching the basketball game. He's not even watching the game till the last 5 minutes. You can't, hockey, you got to change in the fly. You got to get your matchups. You got to get, it's not like baseball. I say, well, it's percentages, and so that we don't have that.
Now, let me tell you this. Over your years, who were some of your more memorable teammates outside of the guy that joined us on this podcast? Some of the characters.
I'd say Daryl Sutter and I were really close, and I was close to all the brothers. And I remember forechecking one night, and the brothers were very close. They talked to each other almost every day. And Brian Sutter tried to hold me up. We were in Chicago, and I pushed his stick. and he threw his gloves in the air, and he was going to come after me. He looked and he went, "Don't hold my stick, Ludzik." He put his gloves back on. I talked to him after the game. We were out, like Daryl Stevens. I thought it was sanitizer. I was going to give him a whooping, but I saw it was you, and I let you give a pass. But Tommy Lysak was a beautiful guy. Squid, you missed Tommy by a year. I always said we lost him a couple of years ago. He was Joe Namath. Everything he said was funny. Everything he said was cool. He even spoke, when he talked, he spoke like singing a song. Like, he went to Billy Watson one night. He was a good player. Hobie Baker were when he was, "Hobie, I love the way you're playing right now. Just loving it." And Hobie was like, "Thanks, Squid. Thanks, Tommy." He said, "The way you're playing, I'll play 10 more years. Nobody's going to put you in a job."
Didn't you room with Jimmy Ralph for a while? Now there's a character.
Well, Jimmy Ralph would, he'd be only in camp for 2 weeks. And then he always got the call down the stairs to see the general manager. But every night, me and him and Lawrence would go out for dinner. And he was the funniest guy. Geez, he was funny. And I remember he went to one time and Bob Pulford came up. Bob Pulford said, he goes, You're a goalie." And Jimmy said, "Can I keep the equipment?" And he had a great training camp going. He got blitzkrieged one day in row 10, and he was off the radar. But great guy, great funny guy.
Who was the best prankster you ever played with?
Probably me.
Name one of your pranks. What was one of your best pranks?
I used to like to. We were in Toronto, and we're eating a steak dinner, and Steve Larmer, like Scooter can attest, loved to eat.
Oh yeah.
He loved to eat. And I had picked up a Raisin Bran muffin from Tim Hortons on the way over, and I put it in my jacket. And before they served Lawrence's dinner, they brought over, and the chefs or the maitre d's giving it to their meals. There's about 5 or 6 of us. I grabbed Lawrence's steak, put it on my plate, put the Raisin Bran muffin in place of the steak. And Lawrence, the maitre d', the server goes, "Breaded steak." And Lawrence looks at it kind of quizzically, and he goes, "Hey, this is a bloody banana muffin here, bran muffin." And he would have eaten the whole thing if we told him, "It's not a steak, Lawrence, it's a muffin." But
it's fun. One of the greatest guys I've ever played with. One of the very, very quiet. Well, I mean, he's got his nickname suits him perfectly, Grandpa.
Yeah, I gave that to him the first day during training camp, junior.
Oh man,
He looked like an old man. He looked like an old man smoking a cigarette, and we're doing a 2-mile run. He can't do a 2-mile run. He's bitching about the heat, and I go, "You're like a grandfather. You're really grandpa," and that became his nickname, and that's where he got it from.
Well, it was a funny story about him and I, because Larms used to like to get to the rink like 3 hours before the game. And I did too. I always wanted to get there early because I wanted to tape my sticks, make sure they were done really well, and, get prepared. And so we used to always take separate cabs and to see who could get there first. And I said to Larms, "Why don't we just take the same cab and go at the same time? I'll let you go in the door first if you want. I don't care. Like, you can say you were the first one there." And so we did for a while. And, but anyway, then it was great. He was a great guy. And I loved Chicago. Unfortunately, it didn't last very long, but the guys there were fantastic. And we had a lot of fun in Chicago, and
Stevie Thomas,
Stevie and
Big Daddy,
Troy Murray.
That may be the next best nickname, Big Daddy.
Yeah. Well, you remember the story of when we were on the bus? Oh no, sorry, that was when we were playing in Toronto, and we came to Chicago, and Big Daddy fell asleep in the very back seat of the bus.
That's Bob McGill for those out there who don't know.
Yeah. So anyway, we get to the rink, and or to the hotel, and we're getting off the bus, and everybody says, "Shh, be quiet. So we all walked off the bus. Big Daddy's still asleep. The bus driver takes off. He's in this remote place in Chicago, which you obviously don't want to be anywhere in Chicago.
No.
Late at night. And the guy's locking the gate to the parking lot where the bus is. And Bobby wakes up and he runs and he's screaming and yelling. The guy lets him out, drives him back to the hotel. The guy just let him sleep on the bus. And he's in the middle of God knows where in Chicago. And thank God the guy was still there, because he would have slept in that bus all night long.
Yeah, and then around Chicago Stadium, you just park your car.
Oh yeah.
$5 to attend it, 10 if you wanted your tires on after the game.
Well,
Now, Ludzik, I got to get you to tell a story. The historical part of you we've touched on a little bit here, but I think this sort of exemplifies I love this story you've told me before. When you were coaching in Tampa, you used to notice this older gentleman. He used to be hanging around the rink all the time, watching your skates and your practices. Yeah. Tell that story about that.
There's a gentleman, Jaworski, Polish last name, and our practice rink was right by Bob Evans. And I got to know the guy. I was like Squid, and I like to get to the rink early for practice, anything, especially if you're coaching. And I get talking to this guy, and was his name Ron? It wasn't Ron Jaworski. It was you have to look it up in the record books. He never says anything to me for a year. We have coffee in the morning, just a hockey fan, like from Tampa Bay. And he's got a brush cut, and he looks like he's, could have been a Marine sergeant if he wanted to be. I'm talking to Don Cherry that summer, and I'm talking about this guy. Don Cherry, Ludz, you know who that was? That was the best player I ever seen play. He won the Eddie Powers Memorial for leading scoring for Oshawa Generals. I called him after I talked to Don. It was the same guy. He never said to me, I played junior hockey, played pro, and he came to visit me a couple of times in Niagara Falls. That's a true story. I don't know why I'm losing this. We hinged together because we're both Polish. So.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, and he never said a word to me. And I haven't to mention him. I don't know why Don Cherry and I were talking. He goes, "Ludz, you know who that guy was? I know exactly who you're talking about. He's one of the best players that ever played junior hockey, played for the Oshawa Generals, won the scoring Red Tilson Award, I think it was for the leading scorer in the OHL. And Michael, you got a good memory.
Yeah. Well, I remember that story stuck in there. That was a good one. Now we've taken up a lot of your time. Squid, what have you got for people? Let's wrap them up here.
Well, that story, I think, exemplifies what hockey players are like.
Yeah.
Especially in our era and before us. They didn't talk about what they did.
Yeah.
They were gentlemen.
Yeah.
And they do anything for anybody, and it didn't matter who you were. And they weren't going to be the ones to come to you and tell you how great you are and everything. It was like, no. We're going to be friends and what have you. And I don't want to talk about hockey. I play the game, yes, because I do it for a living and I love it. But I'm not going to get into talking about myself as a player. And that's kind of how hockey players are.
Well, I think that the thing about this story that stuck with me is the fact that, Ludzik's on the ice running a workout. He was at the rink every day and he noticed this guy hanging around and he kept hanging around. But the inquisitive mind was, this guy must have something to do with the game, or maybe he's just a good fan. Let me go and talk to the guy, at least give something back. And then it turns out to be this gem of a hockey player. He just wanted to watch hockey, enjoyed it. And they talked.
Lou Jankowski. His name's Lou Jankowski.
There you go.
Just came to me. Lou Jankowski.
And
the Polish guy.
And carrying on with that, I know that when I've talked to Pete Conacher, he was at the 51 game with his father, Charlie, when the Leafs won and Barocco scored the goal. And he went to games with his dad. And I remember saying to him one time, I was excited to try and get some information out of him. Well, what kind of stories did your dad tell you in the old days about playing? And he said, really, Mike? Nothing. He didn't? No. And I talked to Brian Conacher. He said, nothing. They didn't say anything. Those guys in those days, they just did it. And they just went home.
And then how nice a guy is Peter Conacher?
Oh, there's nobody nicer.
He's a gem of a guy, and just a beautiful man, and I love him dearly.
It's funny because as an alumni, we have a lot of events, and I get, over the years, I've gotten to meet like Johnny Bauer and Dave Keon, and go on and on. The list goes on and on. And, you just walk away from those encounters thinking like, wow, that guy's an unbelievable person. Like, you wouldn't even think that, he was one of the best goalies that ever played in the National Hockey League or whatever. You just, all that's in your mind is how wonderful that individual was to have a conversation with.
I will say this though, Mike, and you've seen it big time with your attraction that you got. Hockey players go to a party and they usually find each other somewhere near the bar. And their humor is just a little bit weirder. What they think's funny is just a little bit weird.
Yeah.
But I agree with what Squid says. I'm very proud to make a living at this game, and I don't know how long the show is.
Well, I know that.
I wanted to say that I wish I wish Squid all the very best, and Catch 22. That's a great name for a book. I thought it was fantastic, and
Well,
he says he came up with that name himself. I don't believe him.
I believe.
No, I did, and the reason I did is because I remember the movie, and I
You read the book?
Which one?
Catch 22. It's a book.
No, but anyway, I remember the phrase meant that you were caught between a rock and a hard place, so to speak. And once I started doing the book with Scotty Morrison and talking about my life and, everything that happened in my life, I went, holy cow, like there's a lot of situations where I'm damned if I do and I'm damned if I don't, or I'm, between a rock and a hard place. And I said, which is a catch-22 situation. I said, why don't we call it that? And then they checked with the publisher and they thought it was a great idea. And that's how it came up.
I smell some infringement rights being broken here.
Well, I asked them to check into that before we did it. And they said, there's no problem.
Well, that's all good. Well, Ludzik, we can't thank you enough for joining us, but just is there, and again, I can speak from a personal standpoint for Deb and myself here that you two guys, and I know, expounding on your generosity, the two of you never, ever hesitate to come and help us with an event ever, driving in from Niagara Falls on a moment's notice. And it was recognized, and I'll never forget it. So now give us a message for the fans out there and the listeners, just for the foundation and how people can help.
Well, it's nice doing your show today. I'm in, I've worked with the Steve Ludzik Parkinson's Foundation. It's #1 in North America for helping people with Parkinson's disease. And unfortunately, because of the medication I've had to take over the years, I'm in end-stage liver disease. And it's been a year now, so my time's ticking down. I need a longer runway. But I feel good. I feel good today. Yesterday, not so good. I'm a real positive thinker. And you are what you think you are. And I'll give this a go as hard as I can go. But the only way I know how to do it.
Well, that's the way you were when you played too, Ludzik. And
thanks.
You know what? There's certain guys that have that, and there's certain guys that don't. And there's, I can tell you, if I went through my teams and somebody read off the rosters, I can tell you every single guy that had that and every single guy that didn't. And that man right there had that. And he's fighting the battle of his life now, and he's doing it graciously, as he always has.
So now, how do they find it's the steveludzik.com? Is that they just go to that and they can, if people want to make a contribution or help?
Parkinson's Fund, or the Hotel Du Shaver. Like I said, we've raised over $1 million in 8 years. So, and that money goes right to the Parkinson's therapists, and I'm really proud of what we've been able to accomplish there, and I hope to keep on doing that for a long time.
We do too. We hope you do. You got lots left to give us, man. So we want to hear from you.
Michael, thanks for having me on the show. We couldn't have had a better guest than Squid. And great seeing you again.
Great seeing you too, Ludzik. Okay, we can't thank you enough for joining us today. And folks, here goes a good one.
Hey, Squid, I'll see you along the block.
We'll talk to you.
We'll have to go see Davey.
Yeah, exactly. That's a date.
Well, Squid, there's one of the great guys of the game, exemplifies, as you pointed out, everything that's good about the game of hockey and giving back. And I'll tell you, a real champion, Stevie Ludzik, comes on. I mean, you can see the guy, he fights through it. He's going to beat this disease. I'm telling you, it tries to bring him down. A lot of guys would quit, but look at the poor guy, and he still fights through it. And boy, it's funny as ever.
Yeah, he's probably one of the funniest guys I ever played with. Like that night that he talked about at that restaurant, Smith and Walensky's, we asked the guy at the hotel, and when the guy said, "I recommend the shrimp cocktail," and Ludzik just right away turned around and said, "Yeah, I guess you would at $45." But you know what? I always had a great time with him, and I'll tell you what I said about him is true. It's like some guys get it and they work hard enough to be successful, and some guys don't. And look what he's battling now. I mean, Parkinson's and then the liver on top of that. And, God bless him. I mean, I get to see him, now and again. And I see him on some good days and I see him on some bad days. But he's fighting a good fight right now.
Yeah, and it's he's still giving back. The foundation is it will be on our page if people want to give something to it. They're always they run a fantastic event, couple events every year. The golf tournament is a big success. You played in that a number of times. A lot of great hockey players playing that. The actual banquet night or the fundraising night is a big event in Niagara Falls. Huge turnout, usually about 800 people show up to that at that night. Big dinner, great speakers, lots of celebrities. It's a great evening. It's very affordable and it goes to a phenomenal cause. And it's usually a night where they do pick on somebody, and it's a roast.
It's funny as hell.
And it's usually pretty funny when you get the likes of Jim Ralph doing his thing. And there's some pretty good, it's a pretty good night. I've been to a couple of them and they're excellent. So we just encourage people to support. These are the type of causes that people to step up to support, because I think a guy like Ludzik, as I've said to you, he's the first guy to come and help somebody else. So give a little bit back, guys, if you can. Well, Squid, we end another one.
Yeah.
Another great cause we're helping, hopefully, people to chip in and help with. Great guest. You can watch it on, we're now, as we said, on SoundCloud. So we should be in all the podcast networks now. So because people are having trouble finding it. Some of the older people like us that have trouble working a computer, even though it's on the Hockey News Podcast Network, you can find it there. You can find it on our YouTube page. It's Squid and the ULF on Twitter. You can find Ricky on Ultimate. You can find him on Twitter under Twitter is under Rick Vibe, and on Instagram under Rick Vibe
22, I think. On Twitter.
What is it?
I think it's Rick Vibe 22.
Rick Vibe 22. So if you put up Rick Vibe, it'll pop up.
Instagram.
Yeah, on Instagram you find me an Ultimate Leafs fan. I'm the same on Facebook, and Twitter is ULF fan. So you can find us out there. Send us some of your questions you'd like to maybe ask Rick or one of our guests that are coming on. Any of your comments are well taken. Keep the good ones yourself. I got gooned a couple times last week for a few things. So just, we don't need to hear those. No, I'm just kidding, folks. But that's all good. And we always like to thank our friends at the Hockey News for carrying on with us. The Hockey News is your source for anything pertaining to the game of hockey. Anywhere in the world where a story breaks, it's usually right on top of it. And you can get your subscription to the Hockey News at thn.com/deal. Go to it today. But come and join us next week. Look for us this week, and we'll talk to you guys soon.